Dramm manufactures a wide range of watering tools, tools that are used by professional growers, assistant growers, garden center managers, and garden enthusiasts, consumers, patio planters. Many uses for Dramm watering tools. Dramm manufactures a range of different water breaker types for different patterns. We have fine patterns, we have coarser patterns, a little bit higher flow rate, we have high flow rate, we have a soft flow wide pattern, we have a wide flow, also a low pattern, a little bit of a different water texture, and then an extremely high flow rate for big patio planters, tree containers, and heavy soils. Shut-off valves so that we can modulate and set the volume of water required for the task. They come in a range of fiber-filled plastic, or a heavy-duty brass, and we also have an easy on-off, the touch and flow throw, which is very nice for spot watering and going from container to container. Green ones, we have to be able to bring the water to the plant. We have various lengths of wands. 16-inch wand for patio planters, and a professional grower would use them on a bench. A long wand for hard to reach. A nice curved neck for various reaches and how we deliver the water, as well as a hanging basket wand for reaching into hanging baskets that may be high up. Rubber hose. It's extremely important to have a good quality rubber hose with heavy-duty ferrules that are not going to bend or dent, because what happens if we have poor quality hose and this bends or dents, we will have leakage at this point, which wastes water and is also uncomfortable for the person that's doing the watering. A hose that is very rigid, that does not want to kink, fights kink very well, and will last an extremely long time. So we've selected the tool that we're going to use for this watering task. We've calibrated the length fitting our bodies, and we have the water breaker size that we're going to use. In this case, we're going to use Dramm 170 PL. And what we're going to do is we're going to now determine how much water is required by the plant. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it using a counting method. And what that means is we're going to put water in the measuring cup, we're going to count, and we're going to do 3 different count levels, determine how much water, what the moisture level is going to be in the soil, and then from there select how we're actually going to water, how much volume of water is going to go into each pot. So when we do a 2 count, we do it like this: 1, 2. We pour it in the pot as close to where we know the water breaker delivery is going to take it. There will be some spillage along the edge of the pot. That is normal in watering. Don't do this on a beautiful kitchen floor, because kitchen floor will not like that. So now we're going to do a 3 count. 1, 2, 3. That will go into the second pot. Again, the same thing. Careful as we're watering it in. A little bit of spillage in the greenhouse or in the garden center or in the garden is okay. And I think based on what we've seen, we know that we don't have to go to a higher count. We will go to a lower count. So we're just going to go to 1, and we will pour that into the third pot. We will wait a moment. The goal is we want to have a good saturation right down to the bottom of the pot. We waited a few seconds for the absorption into the soil. So when we look at the first pot we watered, that was a 2 count. Nicely saturated right to the bottom, not a whole lot of wasted water. Soil absorbed it very well. When we go to the 3 count, very wet. This is not what we would want. You can literally squeeze the water out. And if we look at the last pot, which was the 1 count, notice how we still have some dryness on the soil, so that isn't sufficient enough. So based on what we've seen here, this 6-inch geranium, North Washington geranium, we're going to water the plants on a 2 count because this is the moisture level that we want in the plant. It's important to know the volume of water when you're measuring. You know, in this case, we used approximately between 1 liter and 1 quart went into that 6-inch pot. It's important to know the volume so we can calculate what nutrients we are actually delivering into the soil based on fertilizer concentrations. One of the things that when watering, one of the things that we have to do is calibrate ourselves. You know, we always talk about calibrating sprayers, calibrating different pieces of equipment, but for watering we also have to calibrate. In this case, we're going to be watering 6-inch North Washington geraniums. We have a narrow bed with relatively close spacing, and what I want to determine is which tool I will select. That'll be based on the comfort of my body, the reach, and the ease of going through the motion of watering. In this case, I determined that the 30-inch length wand is what I want to use. The next challenge is to determine what kind of water breaker we're going to use. And the water breaker is going to determine how much water volume, and when we water, we want to make sure that we're not getting too much water on the foliage. So again, comfort of watering and the health of the plant. I'm measuring or choosing between the 170 AL and the 400 AL, and I think the 400 AL is too big. And in this case, it is going to be the 170 because I can nicely get into the pot underneath the leaves, putting the water in the soil where it belongs, keeping the foliage dry. So it will be the 30-inch handy wand with the 170 AL. Again, we calibrated ourselves. We know we're going to do a 1-2 count. 1-2 means, okay, we open our valve to the point we want. So 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. That should be sufficient for this particular watering task. When watering trays, it's very important to make sure that you maintain as even a rhythm as possible. Also, the height from the water breaker to the flat, you have to try to keep it as even as possible. Many growers water like this, and then what they do is they water and they come down, and the problem will be uneven water because the water coverage per square foot will be less further away from the wand than it is close to the wand. So this is incorrect. The correct way to water is to maintain a proper height, and when using a long wand and watering in a wide area, walk back. Next row, as you're watering over, step forward. Next row, step back. Next row, step back. As you're watering to the end, step forward. Notice how we're keeping the water breaker as even as possible. What we do not want to see in the greenhouse is anybody watering like this. This is a horrible way to water. There's no watering. The soil may look wet, but it's very inconsistent and creates problems for the plants. So the correct watering is even, maintaining water breaker height to the object being watered as consistent as possible. The objective is to create a rain-like water pattern that delivers dissolved oxygen to the root zone of the plant.